Translator, Dark Angel. Editor, Kurisu. After taking but a single blow from the gigantic silver spider, Helian Shunshui had actually lost her memories? This was by no means an implausible conjecture. Her divine sense had been struck by power at the shattering void tier. Under such circumstances, amnesia was an exceedingly common aftermath. The only uncertainty lay in whether this loss of memory was fleeting or permanent. If it were merely temporary, then how long would it endure? Days? Months? Or perhaps even years? Linghan was inwardly shaken. He discovered that he could not perceive even the slightest ripple of origin power circulating within her body. Could it be that after losing her memories, she no longer even knew how to guide and circulate her origin power? Was such a thing truly possible? Linghan could not be certain. Yet if this sea race princess truly could not circulate origin power, then what threat could she possibly pose to him? One had to understand that the reason cultivators could overturn mountains and drain oceans was precisely because they had cultivated origin power. Without it, a cultivator's raw strength would not exceed that of an ordinary person by much, nor would their defenses be particularly formidable. Simply prevent a flower blossom tier cultivator from circulating origin power defensively, then unleash a barrage of arrows from ordinary soldiers. He would assuredly resemble a beehive, riddled with holes. However, Helian Shunshui still possessed a spirit tool that could activate of its own accord, so if anyone sought to kill her, it would be practically impossible. Linghan let out a sigh. He truly could not bring himself to act against a woman who could not even fight back. Now, all he could do was hope that this sea race princess's amnesia would last long enough for him to grow to a level where he no longer needed to fear her. Helian Shunshui gazed at Linghan blankly, yet hope shone clearly within her eyes, as though she were longing for him to tell her who she was. A tender, moving glimmer welled within her large sea-blue pupils. At this moment, Linghan felt that this woman was somewhat cute. Previously, she had been unbearably arrogant. Now she looked like a pitiful little puppy. Unable to help himself, he smiled and said, "My name is Linghan. Your name is Helian Shui. Does this name stir any recollection within you?" Helian Shunshui? The sea race princess shook her head incessantly, lacking only the gesture of biting a finger. After a long while, a pleasantly surprised expression surfaced on her face. "My name is Helian Shunshui?" Linghan felt utterly defeated. Did this woman possess some sort of foolishly adorable attribute? Where are we? Why are we here? And what is the relationship between the two of us? Helian Shunshui asked in one breath, like an endlessly curious child. Linghan contemplated briefly before replying. "This is Fire Country. As for you, I was the one who picked you up. I don't actually know who you really are either. As for this place, we came here to take a stroll. All right, now that our walk is finished, let us each return to our own mothers. Farewell." He turned around, preparing to leave. He truly did not wish to remain beside a high-level heaven-tier cultivator. Who knew when this woman might recover her memories? If she were to suddenly strike him then, he would be utterly finished. At a time like this, he could not afford to be soft-hearted. He had taken only a single step when he felt his legs suddenly tighten. Helian Shunshui had clamped her arms around them. She behaved like a shrew, utterly unconcerned with her image, sitting down on the ground while wrapping her arms around one of his legs. Even more frightening was that this woman possessed terrifying strength. Linghan found himself completely unable to break free from her vice-like grip. How could this be possible? Hadn't she lost the ability to circulate origin power? How could she still wield such monstrous strength? Could it be? Linghan immediately understood. This woman was in the same situation as himself. She, too, had cultivated a body-refining technique. At this moment, she was relying purely on physical strength, which he estimated to be at least at the spiritual infant tier. It felt as though his leg had been shackled by chains forged of divine metal, rendering him utterly immobile. "Let go," he said. "No." Helian Shunshui replied with resolute determination. Not only did she refuse to release him, her grip tightened further. "Damn it!" Cracking sounds immediately echoed from the bones in Linghan's leg. He had formed the body of iron sheet, and his physique was as tough as precious metal of the same level as himself. But the problem was, How could level 6 metal possibly withstand brute force that was, at the very least, level 7? If this continued, the bones in his leg might truly be crushed to fragments. Linghan hurriedly surrendered, saying, "All right, all right, all right. I'll let you keep following me, okay?" Hylian Shunshui had lost her memories, yet her intelligence did not appear diminished. She lifted her head to look at Linghan doubtfully and asked, "Really? You're not lying to me?" "If I lie to you, then I'm a sea demon." Linghan blurted out without thinking. Hylian Shunshui was herself a member of the sea race and naturally harbored no prejudice towards sea demons. She released her grip and rose to her feet, but immediately seized one of Linghan's hands, as though still afraid he might flee. Linghan ground his teeth. When this sea race princess regained her memories and realized that she had actually held hands with him, who knew whether she would erupt in shame and fury and tear him into hundreds or even thousands of pieces. "Sea girl, remember this clearly. You were the one who took the initiative to hold my hand. Don't pretend otherwise in the future," he said gravely. "Oh." Hylian Shunshui had no memories, so she naturally could not care less. "No, you have to swear," Linghan insisted. He wanted some form of leverage. That way, if she truly recovered her memories in the future, he could still spout some nonsense to deliberately provoke her and buy himself time to escape alive. "What kind of oath?" Hylian Shunshui asked rather blankly. "Just say that you were the one who took the initiative to hold my hand. If you falsely accuse me of it in the future, then the Sea Emperor is a great big idiot," Linghan said. Hylian Shunshui, without the slightest hesitation, raised her fair and slender right hand and swore. A thought suddenly flashed through Linghan's mind. Could he make use of the vial of curses? Though she looked foolishly cute at present, recalling her former self made it clear that this woman was firm and ruthless to the core. The instant she regained her memories, Linghan would be utterly powerless. He reached out to pluck a strand of hair from her head, but her pendant immediately gleamed, blocking his hand from advancing any further. With no other choice, Linghan said, "Pluck out one of your hairs and give it to me." Hylian Shunshui bit her finger. After a moment, she shook her head and said, "I can't." "Why not?" Linghan was astonished. Could it be that she was already beginning to recover her memories? "I seem to remember Mother once saying that I mustn't casually give something from my body to a man," Hylian Shunshui replied with utmost seriousness. "This." Linghan thought briefly, then asked, "So if it were a woman, that would be fine?" If so, he could let Hunyu out. "No." Hylian Shunshui shook her head stubbornly. Linghan was speechless. Why? Why couldn't he even deceive a foolishly cute woman who had lost her memories? This was far too much of a failure. "Aye." He sighed and took a step to leave. Hylian Shunshui hurried after him, one hand still gripping the corner of Linghan's clothes tightly. Like a wronged little wife, Linghan walked to the location where the sea race army had once stood. All that remained was a scene of massacre and carnage. Every one of them had perished from bodily explosions. Not a single intact corpse could be seen. All had been torn into shattered bone and flesh, with blood soaking the ground. "Ah!" Terror flashed across Hylian Shunshui's face. She could not help but throw herself into Linghan's arms, hugging him tightly. "Ka! Ka! Ka!" Immediately, loud cracking sounds rang out from Linghan's ribs. "Be gentler. If you keep strangling me like this, I'm about to join those people on the ground, crushed to death by your embrace. And besides, your small breasts have no gradation or texture whatsoever. I don't feel the slightest sensation of two lumps pressing against my chest." "If you keep holding on, I am going to die," Linghan gasped. Kurisu Hylian Shunshui finally released him, yet she hid herself behind Linghan, fingers clenched tightly around the corner of his robe. Through the cloth, Linghan could clearly feel the faint tremor running through her body. That domineering, overbearing woman actually possessed such a fragile, delicate side? Could the loss of memory truly twist a person's temperament so drastically? Or was it merely peeling back a layer, revealing something she had long buried deep within herself? Linghan neither knew nor cared. The most pressing problem before him was this. How was he supposed to shake off this enormous burden clinging to him? This was no different from carrying a ticking thunderbolt at his side. The moment she recovered her memories, it would detonate. Just imagining it was enough to rob him of sleep. "Hi, Niu. Let's see how fast you can run," Ling Han said, having already led Helian Sunshui far away from the mine so as to avoid stirring her emotions again and ending up strangled to death. "Oh," Helian Sunshui nodded obediently, then tilted her head and asked with curiosity, "Why do you call me Hainu?" "Because I feel like it." Ling Han shot her a glare. In an instant, Helian Sunshui's eyes welled with tears. Then she pouted miserably and said, aggrieved, "Why are you being so fierce to me?" Ling Han immediately sucked in a sharp breath. "Cry if you wanted to cry. Why did you have to hook an arm around his neck? Did she not know that this move could kill? Yet he dared not rashly fling away such a living time bomb either. If she truly exploded, even if she only possessed the physical might of the spiritual infant tier, it would still be utterly terrifying. Moreover, that was merely his own estimation. What if her body-refining technique had already reached the heaven tier? "I won't be harsh to you anymore, all right?" Ling Han let out a helpless sigh. Facing Helian Shun Shui at her peak, he had never admitted defeat in the slightest, even managing to trick her into his schemes. Had it not been for the powerful spirit tool in her possession, she would already have died beneath his trap. Yet the current her could not circulate origin power, and her intellect had become adorably simple, and still she somehow managed to suppress him completely. No matter how Ling Han pondered it, he found it inconceivable. How had things ended up like this? Helian Shunshui finally loosened her grip, her expression clearly declaring, "If you dare be fierce to me again, I'll strangle you once more," acting perfectly like a docile little wife. Cold sweat immediately broke out on Ling Han's back. He had already made physical contact with her far too many times. Once this woman recovered her memories, she would undoubtedly erupt in humiliation and fury. What was worse, he had even roughly assessed the measurements of her flat chest, truly inadequate. "Then, let's go." He gathered strength in his legs, and shoo, his entire figure shot straight into the sky. Helian Shunshui leapt as well, mimicking Ling Han's movement. Yet she was even faster, soaring higher, and in the blink of an eye she overtook him. At first, she was shocked that she could jump so high, but the next moment she burst into clear, bell-like laughter, delight written all over her face. Ling Han sighed inwardly. If only she could remain like this forever, letting men handle all the killing and slaughter. A thought suddenly flashed through his mind. Could he take advantage of this time to instill ideas of peace and beauty into Helian Shunshui? Though her memories were gone, what she experienced now would still become part of her future memories, and would surely leave some influence behind. Personally educating her? A despicable scheme, but I like it. Though neither of them employed any techniques, the sheer strength of their physical bodies was already terrifying. Moreover, brute force had the advantage of endurance. Much like demonic beasts, unlike cultivators whose stamina was constrained by the size of the spiritual ocean within their dantian. Once their origin power was exhausted, they would be utterly helpless. Thus, the two raced without pause for over an hour, finally arriving at the small town where Ling Han was staying, yet neither showed the slightest hint of being out of breath. Ling Han could not help but feel uneasy. Bringing this girl home carried risks. He only hoped it would not end in bloodshed. Still, for the sake of planting seeds of peace and happiness in her heart, he had to let her experience what it meant to be cared for and cherished. They entered the Ling residence. When the servants saw Ling Han, they all bowed respectfully, yet their manner was warm and familiar rather than restrained. Soon after, Ling Dongxing and Yu Hongchang hurried out as well. Their son had only been gone a few days, yet to them it felt as though years had passed. "This is..." Yu Hongchang was stunned. Her son was truly remarkable, gone for just a few days, and he had already abducted yet another beautiful daughter-in-law. What else could this girl be? She looked shy and bashful, clinging tightly to the corner of her son's robe, clearly unwilling to leave his side. She was truly beautiful. She even had a pair of unusual blue eyes and a fine figure, especially her legs, slender and long, her hips lifted high, displaying astonishing flexibility. Only, her chest was a little small. No matter. Even if she bore children, it was not strictly necessary for the baby to nurse from her. Yuehong Chang had already envisioned events many, many years into the future, and a radiant smile immediately bloomed on her face. She stepped forward and asked, "Miss, what is your name?" Completely ignoring her son. "I am Helian Shinshui," the princess of the sea race replied. "Come, miss, come with me." Yu Hongchang seized Helian Shinshui's hand and led her away, naturally to impart secret mother-in-law techniques, such as how to deal with her son. Ling Dongxing patted Ling Han's shoulder in silent sympathy. Father and son alike were rendered speechless. Ling Han released Hu Niu. The moment the little girl saw Helian Shinshui, her ferocity surged forth. This woman gave her an immense sense of oppression, stirring a powerful urge to tear open the other's throat. "Come, let's eat," Ling Han said with a smile. Hu Niu's expression instantly flipped into a grin, and she happily followed him inside. There was no way the matter of the sea race would simply end like this. After all, a princess had died, and that would certainly cause an enormous uproar. Yet even those stationed far away in the imperial city could sense the commotion from the battle at the mine. If the sea race truly went there to investigate, they would not emerge unscathed. With that giant silver spider guarding the place, Ling Han believed there was no need to worry about the desolate north. What truly troubled him was the old mine. What exactly lay buried beneath it? Merely 12 ancient corpses and a mountain-sized spider? He refused to believe that was all. Yet with the giant silver spider present, could he venture deeper to uncover the truth? If he wished to discover what truly lay beneath the old mine, he needed greater strength. At the very least, he had to recover his cultivation to the heaven tier. Supported by the Black Tower, he should then be able to explore further. The safest route, naturally, was to break through to the Shattering Void tier. Then he could simply barge in head-on. He planned to remain at home for a dozen or so days before heading toward the Middle State. Both Liu Yutong and Li Xichan chose to stay behind in the Ling residence to await Ling Han's return. Firstly, they already possessed ample cultivation resources, and secondly, they were there to safeguard the Ling clan. Li Xichan also needed to continue refining alchemical pills for Ling Dongxing and his wife. Under Ling Han's guidance, Li Xichan's alchemical skills had advanced at astonishing speed. Now she was only constrained by her own cultivation level. Otherwise, she would have already stepped into the ranks of black-grade high-level alchemists. Their strategy was to win through indirect means. As long as they won over their parents-in-law, did they still need to worry that Ling Han would refuse to acknowledge them as his wives? Ling Han also left Guangyuan and Zhuwuju behind to guard the Ling clan. Their talent was limited, and if they wished to break through to the Flower Blossom tier, they would still need to accumulate power for at least another dozen years. Even if they followed Ling Han, they would be of little help. It was better for them to stay and diligently cultivate. Thus, after more than 10 days, Ling Han, Hu Niu, as well as Helian Shinshui set out together, heading toward Extreme Yang City. There was no way he could possibly shake off this sea race girl. Even after Yuehong Chang successfully coaxed her into calling her mother, Helian Shinshui remained like a newly hatched chick. Since the first person she had seen upon awakening was Ling Han, she was determined to follow him wherever he went.